Hello and welcome to Tippcast with myself, Shane Stapleton, and Shane Brophy beside me as ever. How are things with you, Shane?
Good, no, good mellow music there, Shane. Like,
yeah, I like to,
in the mood.
We're often called a bit backward in Tipperary, but I think no harm trying to evolve all the time here. So look, we obviously had a busy enough weekend in the GA sense of things. I was in at the All-Ireland Club Finals. We'll have a quick touch on Ballygunner's glorious win in a second. You and I were sitting side by side watching Tipperary Kilkenny on Sunday in Semple Stadium. Obviously the footballers, we know they're going to be out next weekend, the Camogues and the ladies footballers too, so we're going to touch on it all. But I suppose just a quick word on the All-Ireland Club Final. What was your reaction when Harry Ruddle knocked in that winner at the end?
Oh Jesus! I let a yelp out. It actually frightened the young lad on the floor in front of me there. He started crying. It's like it was just an incredible way to finish. Like it was, I suppose, for Ballygunner to win their first one like that, and for Ballyhale to have done to them what they've done to St. Thomas's and St. Ryan's already. Like so. It was a really high quality game of club hurling. Like it was, I don't think it was you could say it was I wouldn't say it was overly exciting, but like I just thought there was very, very little mistakes on both sides. Like I wasn't a bit surprised to see Ballyhale play. Probably they're arguably one of their best games of the year, and what was it, last Saturday? I can just came so close, and like I suppose if there is a way probably to beat that Ballyhale team, it's to take the lead with no time left in the clock, which is what happened. And look, it was an incredible shot from Harry Ruddle. Like, look, I wouldn't blame the goalkeeper at all. I thought like if there was a way to score it, that was it. Hit it early. The goalie was kind of blinded by the defender in front of him. He probably saw it late, and then one of those where it bounces just maybe 3 or 4 yards in front, like there, and you're trying to get down to it. Just thought it was a perfect goal and a perfect way for Ballygunner to win it.
Yeah, they are some team. I mean, there's been so much focus on them in the Burnley defeat since was it December 2019. And you know, I was speaking afterwards to Philip Mahoney and Darragh Sullivan. And one of the things that Philip Mahoney, who was sweeper that day against Burnley and was again in this game, he goes, it became an obsession without saying it openly, but each one of us individually put so much into it. And then he was going on about the thoughts of going back to Ballyhale with the All-Ireland, or Ballygunner, I should say, with the All-Ireland trophy. And I'm sure plenty of people have seen the videos and the celebrations there were down there. But it was an obsession, and it must have stung them, the criticism afterwards, because there were references to the fact that, do they like it on a down and dirty day and when the chips are down? And they won in all seasons this year. I can't think of a more fitting and deserving All-Ireland champion. I know people in Lockmore might be a little bit annoyed and put out with some of the play acting that happened that day, which is fair enough. It's understandable, but at the end of the day, they're All-Ireland champions, and they didn't care how they did it. They found a way to get over the line every day.
Oh yeah, like I do, like there wasn't. It was just strange enough that there was a lot of Tipperary support for Ballyhale on the day. Probably going back to the Lockmore match, but in some ways, I'd love to have seen maybe that Lockmore Ballygunner match maybe played in a simple stadium or a Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and just see you take the conditions out of it, take the stodgy nature that Dungarvan pitches, see how Lockmore to Ballygunner on a good surface, how would that gone? I think Ballygunner might have won 3, 4, 5 points to spare. Like so, look, I think they're a quality team. They can play it anyway, and I suppose just watching it, and the aftermatch, you think is sort of a sliding doors moment that this great Ballyhale team is probably coming to, I wouldn't say come to an end, but like maybe they're past their peak, and that this Ballygunner team could be the next Ballyhale, the next Burr and Portumna. It'll just go on and win. They'll win maybe 3 or 4 of them over the next 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, there's been a fair bit of regeneration for both teams in the last few years. Like I spoke with Stephen O'Keefe last week, and I was saying, God, you've been on the road for a long time, 8 county finals in a row. And he said to me, the team has changed so much over the past couple of years, about all the under-8 success they had. And I'm looking at the team here, and the guys who would be in and around or over 30. I think Shane O'Sullivan is 36. Barry Coughlin and Pádraig Mahoney and maybe Philip Mahoney, they're around 30. But after that, the age profile is exceptional in the team. Stephen O'Keefe, I'm sure, could go on for another 10 years if he wanted.
Like the Paddy Fitzgerald, the Paddy Fitzgerald coming in next year, like he was well good enough to play this year, like if the age requirement wasn't there. So you can imagine how good their forwards are now, and like Jesus, like Liam Cahill must be licking his lips to see Desi Hutchinson coming back. He's just finding something different every year. Like you see, he's getting more comfortable about what's needed, and you think he's bringing a professional mindset from when he was in England back to this, like of the preparation needed. God help any cornerbacks trying to deal with him.
And he's such a normal fella. Like I interviewed him a couple of years ago at this stage, and he's just like any old lad that you'd meet down the street. There's no sort of airs and graces about him. I will say about Ballyhale, I know Colin Fennelly's 32 and TJ Reid is 34, but other than that, their age profile is very, very good. Like Joey Holan's around 30, Richie Reid's probably 28, give or take. Yeah. But I'd say everyone else is under the age of 24 or 25, so they probably won't go too far away either. But if, in the next couple of years, if TJ Reid isn't leading the light all the time, they might be under a bit of pressure. But Tomas McCarthy of the Waterford News and Star and WLRFM, he had a great stat on Desi this year. And from the past 3 seasons, 24 championship games, he scored 1490. Yeah. We're going to have plenty to worry about with Desi at Walsh Park during the summer, aren't
we? Jesus, like you'd nearly have your sweeper just standing in front of him, like, because like it's just like I remember good that they been at the Waterford Galway match in Thurles last year. I don't know sure whether you were at that game.
I was, yeah.
But a ball went into the Kleinen end corner of the old stand. And like he was up against the touchline with about 3 Galway defenders nearly converted, and he won the ball. And man, I think it might have been the build-up to Jack Fagan's goal. I just thought this is incredible. Like what he's been asked to do, and he just doesn't mind it. Like he's been asked to win the dirty ball in areas maybe that he's probably not going to score in, but his ability just to see the whole field and see the runners coming through when he gets the ball. I just think this guy is just I think he's going to take forward play to another level over the next couple of years.
That is high praise indeed. And actually, like we're going to talk about some of the Tipperary managers who are over other counties, Darren Gleeson, Dara Egan and Liam Cahill, who, Colm Bonnar has even name-checked again saying he'll definitely be a Tipperary manager coming. And, chances are he probably will be. But I was just looking at Waterford, so Limerick are number 1. But if you look at this Waterford team, like in the backs, you have Conor Prunty, who's obviously excellent. You're going to have Ian Kenny coming back in. And like the job he did on Owen Cody the other day, like, I mean, you can't overstate how well he did, keeping him to just a point. Iarla Daly looks like a player who's kicking on to the next level. Jack Fagan, who's a big man, the Mead man, he's now playing wing back. So if you look at a half back line for Waterford of Jack Fagan, Tyg de Burka and Calum Lyons, that's pretty superb. Then put Jamie Barron just in front of him. Then have a forward line with Stephen Bennett, Hurler of the Year nominee, Austin Gleeson, he's won Hurler of the Year, Desi Hutchinson. There's probably 1 or 2 more I'm not even mentioning. It's a fairly fearsome team that they've got coming there if they can keep everyone fit.
Yeah, was there a stat up online that there was, I think they named 17 forwards, and I said, Jesus, like only 6 of them can play. Like there's going to be competition just to get on the 26. I think, I suppose that having Liam Cahill staying on was just such a vote of confidence. And look, and I suppose like the way they devoured Laois last week, it reminded me a lot of the Tip under 20 team in 2019, where like they took almost 7 goals against Wexford in the All-Ireland semi-4. Like it was, if there's a sniff of a goal, you go for it. Like no mercy. And like I definitely think they're Limerick's biggest challenge this year. I know people say Limerick beat them comfortably last year, but look, they had to come off. They had only a week to prepare after beating Tipperary and Páirc Uí Chaoimh. They had a couple of injuries. Tyg de Burka wasn't there. I think they're themselves in Galway are the 2 closest to maybe taking down Limerick, and I wouldn't write off Waterford being the team that could win an All-Ireland this year.
Now, they did lose their last couple of games to Limerick in the Championship very convincingly. The All-Ireland final, they were fairly battered, and last year for a finish, they were I think in some ways you look at the 2020 Munster final when they were level.
I thought there was a naivety last year where, like, that first 20 minutes in last year's semi-final was physically ridiculous on both sides. I just thought it was naive to think that Waterford could take Limerick on and that and not be absolutely out on their feet by half time, which is what happened. Like, they had nothing left in the tank because, look, they only come off a week's rest after playing Tip. Well, I think Limerick were refreshed for 2 or 3 weeks. Like, so but like, I just think Limerick are building a squad, or sorry, Waterford building a squad. Like, if there is a couple of injuries, they'll be maybe, especially in the forwards, will be able to cope defensively. Like De Borca, the two Dailies, like they're building nicely there at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think for any team this year, depth of squad is going to be huge because obviously the league is fairly rat-a-tat, and then you go into the championship and you've got your 4 games within your province, 5 if you're in Leinster, and then you're into the knockout phases. So you will need that squad. But what about Tipperary at the weekend there? 119-118 win over Kilkenny. This was the first meeting between the teams since the 2019 All-Ireland final, which Tip won by 14 points. A huge change in terms of personnel since then. Just 12 of the same 30 faces started in this game. I know there was some Ballyhale lads who will be back starting again. But what are your first thoughts when you think of this game?
I suppose I did think, for all the times we lost Kilkenny in the league in tight games, it was actually nice to come out the right side of it once, even though the quality of the game was poor, and probably two teams that are a long way off the peak of some of the classics they threw up over the last decade. But look, I suppose to win the game in the circumstances where all the momentum looks to be with Kilkenny with 20 minutes to go, but look, Tip dug it out and got over the finish line. So look, that has to be a positive from Colm Bonnar's point of view, that even though it was a far from perfect performance, that they got the victory. Look, it's 2 from 2. They're probably I do think that the Dublin and Waterford games now are the real test of where this Tipperary team are. Like, I think both are further ahead in terms of where in the order. They're ahead of Kilkenny in my pecking order anyway at the moment. Like, there was some very unlucky Kilkenny-like stuff there the last day. Hand pass not going to hand, mishit, freeze, mishit, not even rising the ball properly. Like, just completely un-Kilkenny-like stuff. But look, I suppose as the game opened up in the second half, it seemed to play into Tipperary's hands. Maybe not in the forwards as such, but like you see, Ronan Maher came on, like, he made a statement. He just ploughed through Richie Leahy. He stuck the ball over the bar and more or less said, "Lads, I'm here, follow me." And in fairness, when we did mix up I think the Tipper trying to form a sort of a hybrid style of not completely going the Limerick way, but just getting more comfortable doing it. And I know, looking at it in replay, I think maybe a lot of the work on the ball through the lines wasn't so bad. We got some nice scores from, but I definitely do think there is what has to be worked on is an understanding in the forwards of where to run when the ball is getting up to around 45, 60. Like we won. I thought and it was the same against Laois. I actually don't think the quality of the ball going in is that bad, but it's the quality of the run. It's the quality of maybe clearing out an area so maybe another player could run into space to get a ball in the run. I think that's where we have an awful lot of development work to do.
Yeah, I do think it's such early days in terms of like completely overhauling how you're playing, but at the same time overhauling the personnel, because Paddy Maher's had to retire and Brendan Maher retired. So you're looking at, and this is in probably a lot of the area, like they had positions where they would have had a big impact in the style of play. So now you're bringing in new lads like Dylan Quirk, Craig Morgan, James Quigley is playing full back, and you're looking to play a new style altogether, which is running off the shoulder, feeding the 3 or 4 hand passes, maybe up to 6 hand passes at a time, before then trying to strike and deliver. And we know that Dennis Maher performed pretty okay. He got himself a point, won some ball, but like darting out to the side, left to right. Remember we talked with Owen Brislan about it. That full forward has to be able to burst out to the wings, win the ball, throw it over the bar, or feed it to someone coming on the burst. And it's hard to get that going straight off the bat, and I'm not sure if that entirely suits Dennis, even though like he is making his presence felt, and his physicality will kind of help get you across the line in games at this time of the year. But I did think one of the things that probably hasn't kind of worked just yet, or we haven't got to that stage just yet, is when we're working the ball through the hand and you're trying to carry it into midfield or through midfield, up
Yeah.
the flanks or whatever, that by the time someone is ready to strike, like once or twice Barry Heffernan came out with the ball and he's looking up and there's no real ball on. The only ball is bury into the corner flag, more or less, a real straight ball up the line, which is very hard for an attacker to do a lot with. But the crossfield ball is nearly cut out because you're going to have to send a big loopy one. So it's just a case of getting to the stage when Tip are working that ball through the centre, that they're actually punching through the middle so that someone's running from midfield into the opposing 65 and they've got every option on. So I think that's just like a process of evolution over the next few weeks.
Oh, definitely. And maybe, I suppose maybe they're just starting with the back six was like, and maybe it's a case of, maybe that's the reason why maybe Michael Breen and Alan Flynn haven't been as prominent on the ball, but they're sort of caught in a bit of limbo there. Like the ball from the half backs is not really going into the midfield, and if it's stopping around the 65, they're sort of either sending Lynn diagonally to say maybe too far, or there's it's in maybe high into the full forward position.
Can I jump in, Shane, there and just say to you, when you watch Limerick play this ball out of defence, how often do you see somebody from inside their D or their own 21 in the Limerick team do a stick pass to Darragh O'Donovan or Will O'Donoghue or whoever at midfield, and then a half back comes on the burst? And that's the way they get their midfielders into it. Whereas I totally agree with you, Flynn and Breen, the way we're playing it at the moment, it just hasn't got quite to that stage where we're bringing them into it, or even like the wing forwards per se. They weren't massive.
Same with Ger Brown was quiet enough on the day too. Like Dan was sort of doing his best work back the field in the half back line too. Like so, look, it's just going to take time for it all to evolve, and I suppose create a better understanding. I suppose as time goes on, the forwards will get a better understanding. Okay, if a ball is in a certain position, I've got to make a run into a certain area, or like there are going to be teething problems. Look, there's no point saying otherwise. But I definitely do think if Tipperary are to get a greater understanding, speed up maybe their execution of what they're trying to do, I think Paddy Cadell is so important to doing it, because he plays that style with J.K. Brackens where they do the work, the ball through the lines. And like, as much as Tip improved, Ronan Maher came on, I thought when Cadell come on just before him, I just thought our whole half back line just looked a lot more assured when they got the ball, that he knew where it had to go. I just thought there was a lot more composure when he got on the ball. And just no disrespect to Seamus Kennedy, who, look, having played football with Tip and commercials, he knows how to give a safe hand pass. But I just think Cadell can move it on an awful lot quicker. And I'd just be wondering, would maybe Cadell in the Seamus Kennedy role, would Kennedy not be better up the field, maybe doing the Will O'Donoghue sort of stuff? If he gets the ball, he'll move it on, or he can break a tackle. Like, I just think that's the interesting thing for me. For the Dublin game and Saturday week, thinking, okay, I'd love to see Ronan Maher, Cadell, and maybe either give Dylan Quirk another go, or particularly, like, we still have to find out at this level if there's a place for Brian McGrath. We're all saying, because he's so good for Lockmore, that he surely got to find his way into the Tip team. Like, if he doesn't play against Waterford or Dublin in the next 2 weeks, like, it's nearly, where do you fit him into the team? Like, so I just think I assume there will be changes for Dublin, because, like, in fairness, he was loyal to the first 2 games, and I can understand after playing in horrific conditions in Portlaoise that, look, you wanted to give guys a fair go in half decent conditions, which they were in Thurles last week. And look, some guys did better. I thought Dylan Quirk was very, very good, and you could see his confidence rising as the match went on. Craig Morgan got a good testing from Billy Ryan, but in fairness to him, while Billy got out in front of him, like, Craig never let him get away to score. I think the only time Billy had maybe possession that turned into something decent for Kilkenny was the pass he gave for Tygo Dwyer for the goal. Like, so I thought it was a good test for him. So forwards, I thought Mark Keogh, maybe it was a game too much for him with the demands of Fitzgibbon Cup. He just looked a bit under pressure. But I don't know if you thought, I thought it was Jake Morris's most complete 70 minutes for Tip so far. I think there's more. He can definitely show more, but I just thought in terms of a complete 70 between scoring and foraging back the field, I thought that was his best 70 in a Tip jersey so far.
Yeah, I think Jake Morris is becoming the sort of player that we suspected he would. Scored 1-2, and definitely his pace coming through the centre. Like he had that goal chance, to get a second one, and Owen Murphy produced a brilliant save.
Yeah.
Probably, I'd say if he had his time back again, he probably wouldn't put it at the side where the boss of Owen Murphy's hurley starts. Maybe even.
I'd love to see Jake start giving goalkeepers the eyes. Okay, fake as if he's going to the far corner, but actually he's going to send it to the other corner. Like, because I just think he has the ability and the confidence to do things like that.
Yeah, so Colm Bonnar did say he will mix up the team afterwards, and you do wonder, like, I kind of, if his idea is, I want to give these lads 2 full games, because over the course, if I throw lads in for 20 minutes here and there, it can be difficult for them to show me what they're about. Whereas if I give, the likes of James Quigley 2 full games, if I give Craig Morgan 2 full games, I have a fair idea what this guy is going to give me. Now, I do think the level of quality is going to step up in the next couple of games. So if you're James Quigley, you've played against Laois, who were playing an awful lot of players back out the field, so you had a bit of support around you. It was a full backs day because it was a dog of a day, and then in this game here, it was against probably the most ordinary Kilkenny team we've probably seen, and still they could have won the game on Sunday, but a very, very ordinary Kilkenny team. So the step up in class is going to come. If you're playing against Dublin, you might be out against Ronan Hayes the next day.
I definitely leave Morg or Quigley there, because I think he needs.
He hasn't done anything wrong, like.
No, but he's going to play against a proper full forward in the next. Like, Martin Keown was sort of a makeshift full forward, like he's more of a half forward. Like, so I would definitely give Quigley another shot there. Like I don't know if you the point I made earlier about the half back line. I just think the Waterford one intrigues me, because I would have said this time last year, Tip needed that league game before the championship, that Tip needed to go down to Waterford at full deck. I'm not convinced Tip need to show their hand in the league game against Waterford with the championship match coming. But that's not to say you can be sure Liam Cahill is going to want to absolutely drive the horse and cart through Tip and get doubts in their minds before the championship match. So, like, it's that the build up to that one's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, we'll talk a bit more about the Dublin Challenge next week, but our condolences to Matty Kenny and his family on the sad passing of his mother Annie. But I'm looking at this Dublin team, and you're going to get serious challenges from the likes of, like, if you look at the half back line of Tipperary, Dylan Quirk and Seamus Kennedy and Barry Heffernan and whoever might start the next day. Donald Burke is, great sticksman. Ryan McBride has been in great form. Danny Sutcliffe's going well. Then Fergal Whiteley will be floating around from full forward. Ronan Hayes, a lot of lads are going to test you out. And for the inside line, like, Owen O'Donnell is arguably the best full back in the country. Keane O'Callaghan's very good. They have an awful lot of options, and they have a couple of more lads coming. And Matty Kenny does not really do challenge matches. He might the odd time for league games not bother with going too deep into the tactics and just throw the lads out and see who hurls well. Keep that for championship. But it's going to be a serious test.
Yeah. Like, there's a lot of things I'd love to, like, it's just, I think it'd be interesting to try certain things. Like, I having Morgan and Barrett as 2 out and out cornerbacks, there's very few teams going to play a 3-man inside full forward line. So, like, there's no reason to say, okay, Barrett is your number 1, and if he's in difficulty, Morgan comes in. Like, there is an option to say, look, could you name Brian McGrath at 4 and see how he would go in the sort of flow? If another team is withdrawing a forward, I'd leave him as your ball playing maybe cornerback, and look, there's no better man to use with his footballing ability. Like, I just see, without maybe having to sacrifice maybe a Barry Heffernan, and as you say, like, Barry Heffernan is sort of made for this style, because, like, he can glide up the field and he sends in a good quality ball, but he can also pick off points from 70 or 80 yards. So that's just going to be the fascinating thing for me, particularly in the next 2 games. Like, Morgan hasn't done anything wrong, but I don't think you need 2 out-and-out cornerbacks in the modern game anymore. And if that's the case, like, Barrett is going to be your number 1, because I thought he was ridiculous in the first half against Kilkenny last week, and just the way he won that free. And I know there was a little bit of Barrett sort of bought that last free, but you sort of knew it was coming. But he was brave enough to say, okay, Wally, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. So how are you going to not foul me by doing it? Look, he was brilliant enough to do it. Like, so.
Actually, like, his form is brilliant. Like, he's flying it. Also, Jason Ford scoring 5 from play for centre forward. that's going to cause a real conundrum for whoever Tipperary are playing later.
It's the third game in a row, effectively going back to the 2 matches in Páirc Uí Chaoimh last year, where he's gone to town on teams, drifting into pockets of space, and he's
Tip needs
same with Pádraig Walsh too. Sure, he drifted. When you're sort of given that free roll off number 11, and it's just very, very hard for you can end up blaming the opposition centre back. And I know Niall Brazel and Seamus Kennedy, maybe you look at it at Coley, okay, Jesus, they were skinned, but they were they're being asked to do a job that's not really, they're being asked to do a job in terms of sweeping, and if the number 11 drifts off them, that's not really their fault.
Yeah, some of those Kilkenny players are new enough on the scene.
Yeah.
That entire half back line hasn't played too many championship games between them. So there's probably a little bit of naivety. Even the full back line, Hugh Lawler's the only one that we've seen regularly. So Paddy Deegan is, to me, out of position at midfield beside Cian Kenny, who looks like he's going to be a good little talent. But I'd be worried from a Tip point of view if you look at the start of the second half. Now, this has been a recurring issue with me for years, that Tip lose the throw-in against Kilkenny so often, and either concede a free or a chance or a score almost straight away. It always happens. And it happened at the start of the second half.
Half a goal chance at the start.
Tom Phelan, he was in, and it wasn't Tom Phelan's greatest day with the stick. He got on a bit of ball, but it just didn't happen for him. But after that, Tipperary the teams traded frees, and after that, Kilkenny got, I think, was something 7. Like 6 points in a row. And the fact that Tip couldn't find a way to stem the tide, not only did they get 6 points in a row, Tip didn't even get a shot to break that up. Now, ultimately, Tip always had an answer when Kilkenny came back. So. But in the first place, why do we need Kilkenny to get level before the team gets going again? But maybe it's just a case that Colm Bonnar is willing to accept whatever happens during the league for the game plan. And the other thing I wonder is, so you're looking at 5 regulation league games. Limerick probably aren't going to get to a league final at this stage because they've lost 2 from 2. Now, they still could, but there's a league title there for whoever wants it. From Tip point of view, I think even for the confidence of the players, because there's a nice few new lads coming through there, the likes of Dylan Quirk, I'm sure he'd love to win silverware. No Tip league title since 2008. And also then in terms of developing this game plan, which is in early days, you have 5 games. Would it be a good thing to have 6 and 7? Or are you afraid of showing your hand a bit?
Yeah, that's the thing. I suppose I was thinking if you got to the interim game and you had no more games after that, you say, okay, fine. But you know as well as I do in this county, if you get to a league semi-final or a final and you lose it, it's the same as, oh God, you're going into the championship then and a downer. It was like the last year when we went to Walsh Park for the last league game, and issues were we didn't get to a league final, but it created issues that sort of clouded the build-up then going into the championship. So look, it's a double-edged sword. I would agree. Look, if Tip beat Dublin on Saturday week, they're effectively guaranteed a league semi-final, because even without beating Waterford, because they should beat Antrim in their last game. So you think 4 wins out of 5 should get you to finish in the top 2. So look, I think I wouldn't. It can't be a bad thing if Tip end up in a league semi-final or league final. But if you don't end up winning one of those 2 games, are the supporters going to start coming down and say, God, we're in trouble heading into the championship? And look, that league final is 2 weeks before Waterford. Look, if you get to a league final and win it, it's actually brilliant momentum going into the start of the championship. But there's no guarantees you're going to win it. And as you say, maybe it's the fact that maybe on the other side of the draw, it's looking like Galway, probably with Wexford, maybe is in the top 2. Or sorry, Cork. You can't rule out Cork. So it's it's an interesting one. I definitely think, look, if Tip beat Dublin, there's a fair chance they're in the semi. If they don't, they're probably, I'd say, they'll be under pressure to beat Waterford, and then you're just looking like maybe Waterford and Dublin with the teams to get through. So it's hard.
Do you know, I think it'd be no harm to get to it, because I know I said...
I'm not saying that they won't go out maybe to throw it. I'd say they'll be going out hard to win every game. But
well, I suppose what I'm saying is the upside I see to it is, I mentioned, maybe you don't want to show your hand, but there's no point in hiding your hand if you haven't had enough competitive games to develop it. Tip need more games.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So that's why I'd probably be... And wouldn't it be interesting if Tipperary came up against Derry Egan's Wexford in the semi-final of the league, that'd definitely be an interesting
I'd say if push came to shove, I would say it'll be Cork and Galway, but I definitely think there'll be a little bit of an edge now to that Limerick Cork game in the league in a couple of weeks' time. I don't think Limerick will want to go 3 for 3. And look, I'm not convinced about it. That there's a bit of excitement coming in Cork, but they're playing this. It's so. There's no physicality into it, and they're just going to come up against the Galway and Limerick in the next few weeks, and they're just going to say, lads, we're not going to let you dance around us, and they're just going to end up at the same issues that were always last year, particularly against Limerick. I just don't think Cork have learned anything.
Yeah, well, they're up against the weakened Clare team, and then Offaly, who are a nice bit off when it comes to this.
We'll know it's the next 3 games Cork have. We'll know a lot more about them.
Yeah, I think we said we'd do this at some point during the league. We picked our championship team before the league started. We knew that there's a fair chance our minds would change. So I'll just bring them up on the screen again. You might run quickly through your team. And I mean, it's still early days, but just even to look at what players have actually not even got an opportunity yet, has your mind changed on anything? So there's your team on the left.
Yeah, I'll go through mine. It's so I suppose I have the 2 Brian and goals. I fully expect Barry will get a shot in the next couple of weeks. Craig Morgan about Carl Barrett got it right. I said Owen Connolly, just thinking purely on the basis Pádraig Maher retired, maybe sort of somebody in his mould would maybe come in, but he's had his injury problems. So look, James Quigley has done nothing wrong so far. I don't foresee Ronan Maher going back to the full back line yet. I think Ronan needs to be our half back somewhere. Seamus Kennedy, Brian McGrath. We haven't seen Brian yet. I definitely think I would agree with you. I think Barry Heffernan will be in the team. It was one stick or twist with Seamus Kennedy and Barry Heffernan. I say if I had to pick him, I probably would veer towards Heffernan at this stage. Flynn, Cadell, McCormack, Jason Ford, Breen. I think Breen's under a bit of pressure. We could do with maybe somebody else, maybe standing up in that half forward line, and the full forward line, Keogh, Morris, and John McGrath. I probably expect maybe we'd probably see John maybe over the next couple of games. What about your team?
Yeah, well, I'll just run quickly through it. Yeah, sure. Brian Hogan's got his chance. I agree. Barry will get a chance probably the next few games. I have Ronan there full back, but Quigley, I suppose, has done nothing wrong, so he'll probably get a bit more game time. And you always know that if you need it, you can play Ronan back there. I still like I'm not really sure. I know previously I said I like the idea of Seamus Kennedy playing at number 6 because he has that pace to get around, which he does. But I still like the idea of him marking someone and blotting him out of the game. Yeah. And if he needs to be able to, I know you said before, a lot of the time it's a 2-man full back line. But you know what, Seamus Kennedy, if he has to mark someone back there too, he can sort of do that hybrid role. So I kind of like that for him. Half back line that we haven't seen Brian McGrath. I'd be disappointed if we didn't see him start in the next couple of games. And the same with Paddy Cadell. I still like that idea of a half back line, but I don't mind, for example, if Brian McGrath was tried as a midfielder and you found a way to bring Ronan Maher out to the half back line, like the way he lifted the crowd the other day. It was a sort of a reminder that you want Ronan Maher in the game as much as possible.
Yeah, and I like just picking up that idea of Brian McGrath as a midfielder. Like, he's so good on the ball, composure wise, that if that maybe our attacks working out of defence are sort of stalling around midfield. Maybe Breen and Flynn, maybe that's not a strength of theirs. Maybe if you had a Brian McGrath in there, if you're laying off a hand pass to him, there's a fair chance that he's going to do something very, very positive with it, either carry it on himself or he'll find somebody out in a wing position that's in space.
Yeah, actually, I was even thinking again this week about your prior suggestion of Noel McGrath playing as a sweeper, or even because those stick passes that I was saying to you earlier that Limerick do out to midfield, if he collects the ball, he's good in the air, he reads the game so well, he could stick pass out to the middle. But he maybe just even playing as a deep midfielder again with a different style, like the style Tip were playing maybe last year. Midfield can be a bit of a thankless task because the ball is just probably going over and back over your head, but in this sort of system, no better man to be the conductor of the orchestra. So, we'll see with that one. Midfield, I'd named Stan McCormack and Alan Flynn there. So, like you're saying, still developing in terms of what Tipperary are doing there. Michael Breen, John McGrath, and Mark Keogh. I mean, Keogh has been starting inside and probably that's where he'll stay. Ford, Callan, and Morris. So Ford has gone out to number 11. So I suppose swap Ford and Keogh there. John McGrath. It's kind of interesting to see where does Colm Bonnar see those lads fitting in, because because to us it makes sense to play him centre forward or wing forward or full forward. He might be looking at it differently.
Yeah, definitely. Like I wouldn't say I would have my concerns about whether Callan can start. Like if he starts, he's probably not going to finish. Like I think you have to make a decision with Shamey. Do you start to get the most out of him, or do you bring him on to finish matches? And like
who are the other options though? If you don't start him there, I mean, I'm not entirely convinced that we'll see Dennis Maher starting full forward.
I think my preference would be John McGrath, because I just think he's so clever at drifting into positions where he could get, and like he's not quick, but by God, he's deceptively brilliant at able to create little pockets of space. And like his vision is so good, he would bring maybe a Mark Keogh or Jake Morris into play coming off the shoulders, or maybe a Ger Brown coming from deep. Like so.
So if we're to sort of imagine a championship match in the summer and you're playing two inside, that's really what's going to happen. Maybe you'll have one floating and then the rest of the half forwards are out a bit. It's going to be two men with their back to goal standing maybe 10 yards out at either side of the 14. Is John McGrath suited to that role? He probably can. He's good in the air. But like if you have to play the ball beyond the sweeper out into the corner, he's going to have to throw it out to the corner flag more or less to get it, then turn and try and do something.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. I think he would be. I think he could do something similar to Aaron Glenn, who's not blessed with pace, but God, he's just so adept at, like, even with his goal against Galway, like just the way he sort of fooled the corner back, and he ended up making him look like a sucker, and he got it in there. I suppose my scenario would be a two-man full forward line of Keogh and John McGrath, because Keogh likes to go for goal, and maybe Jake Morris to be the sort of drifter out towards the half-forward line, maybe like he did last Sunday, just be into pockets of space, even ask him to go back, because I like him coming off the shoulder, maybe coming from deep, like, he likes to go for a goal too, like, so that would be my thinking. You like to think maybe over the next few weeks, and like I know that people are wondering why we haven't seen maybe the Lockmore lads and maybe Ronan Maher only coming off the bench. Like they only came back in mid-January to full training, so look, they're been foolish to throw them into full matches straight away. Like you need to bring them on slowly, and I would fully expect, definitely to come to the Dublin game, that they'll be in a position maybe to be picked from the start.
Yeah, get your comments in there. Let us know what you want to see from Tipperary and what you think so far. Noel Cahill says, sorry if I missed the start, but Tipperary are learning this new style. It will take time. I like it overall, but still a long way to go to be near Limerick or Waterford even. I'm in support of the general idea of what they're trying to do. I mean, I'm not sure what the final destination is in terms of this plan, but in general, trying it a different way. But I accept the teething problems.
Yeah. Oh, definitely, I do too. But I'm very careful not to write Tip off. Realistically, do we see Tip winning All Ireland? No, but I don't want to go down the road of just writing off the season, say we can't win an All Ireland, but we're going to try this. Like I never want to be in a situation where Tipperary can't win an All Ireland because we're trying something different. Like it's like, why do you compete in any year? Like I think you want to be a scenario where
can Tip get out of Munster is the question.
That's it. Oh, that's it. Like, but
3 doesn't go.
Oh, that's it. Look, that's it. But like, I never want to be in a situation where you don't have Tip challenge for an All Ireland anywhere. Look, like it's the same for every county this year. You can have ambitions for an All Ireland, but your first focus is finishing in the top 3. And look, that's a minefield at this stage. Like I said it to you off air. I'm going to say it now. If I was to pick my top 3 in Munster as it stands, I don't have Tip in it, and I don't like saying it, but it's But that's not to say Tip won't get it. Like if the first challenge for anybody this year is making sure you're in the top 3 in Munster and Leinster, and after that, that's when the fun starts.
So, in terms of like your pecking order, what would be the order of your pecking order at the moment, and where would Tip be in it?
If I was to go Munster, just split them up. I'll go Munster. I suppose I'll split them up first. I suppose I'll go Munster. I'd have Limerick, Waterford, Cork, Tip and Clare. Leinster, I'd have Galway, Wexford, Dublin, Kilkenny.
I'd have Dublin ahead of Wexford.
Yeah.
And possibly ahead of Galway.
Yeah, I just like where Wexford are going, and they haven't had Lee Chin. I just think we're seeing the best out of Rory O'Connor and Conor McDonald in an attacking sense. You put Chin in there, that's
Kevin Foley too.
Yeah, that's the way. I suppose I might go through my maybe mixing them up, but that's the way I sort of have it at the moment. I don't know. I think this could be the year maybe Kilkenny don't get out of Leinster. I'll have egg in my face after it's over. I don't know. There's something about them that they're missing. But look, they'll probably squeeze in there in the three and they'll end up in the semi-final and they'll end up losing narrowly. And what were your thoughts beyond it at the moment?
Well, number one, we want to see Galway again. Want to see sort of a knockout situation between Galway and Kilkenny at some stage in the season. I mean, Henry Sheffield up against Brian Cody with Everton on line would be very interesting. Right, so I think at the moment, based on how far Tip are down the line in terms of learning the new game, if they were to come up against Limerick tomorrow, I think you'd be fearful. So I think at the moment there's a bit of a gap with Limerick. Waterford, there's a half step there at the moment too. I mean, we named out the quality they have earlier, so you'd have to say Waterford would be ahead. But Cork, I mean, I still think Tip can beat Cork. I mean, you talked about it earlier in terms of like, I mean, if I can paraphrase what you said, they wouldn't go into a dark room. But I know I'm obviously.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
I know.
It's just their style is all about avoiding physicalities, avoiding confrontation, and like you just can't do it. Like you have to be prepared for some element of it.
So, but the point is that I'm kind of having a bit of fun with that there, but really it'd be a puck of a ball if you were to put Cork and Tipperary in a match tomorrow. I think there'd be a puck of a ball in it. Like Cork didn't exactly beat all the heavy hitters to get to the All Ireland last year, and they weren't convincing every day. They needed a last-second save from a Tony Kelly shot to get through. They needed extra time to beat Kilkenny. They weren't unbelievable the whole way through. Now I think they are quite good, and probably if they had the All Ireland final back again, I don't think they'd be losing.
I do think it's probably a toss of a coin, and I suppose that we could actually get it ended up. It could come down to Tip and Cork in Thurles is the last match of the group stage. Like look, if form holds up, like Tip's two away matches are Limerick and Waterford. Like at this stage, I'd say you'd be doing, if you got 1 point out of those four, you would say, geez, that's a success. Beat Clare, and then your last match is against Cork, where maybe qualification for the All Ireland series. Like I take that, and look, I would never back against. I still think there's a bit of a flaw psychologically with Cork. If you took them into a battle under pressure, the last 15-20 minutes of potentially being a knockout round robin game, I wouldn't back against Tipperary at all. I wouldn't be as confident in Cork getting through that one.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be writing off Clare either. I do think they've got a lot of good players, and they'll have Tony Kelly back if he hits the ground running after 4.5 months maybe out. Shane O'Donnell, I think, is training. Peter Duggan needs games. Aidan McCarthy's out for the season. He's a huge loss. But I do think they'll present a small bit of trouble for us too. So in general, what have you been making of, what Liam Cahill, Darragh Egan and Darren Gleeson have done so far this season? Like we know that Wexford have won 2 from 2. Waterford have won 1 game, battering Laois the other day, scoring 7-31. And they drew the first day out with Dublin. Whereas Antrim, they've got no wins from 2 games. They were beaten narrowly by Kilkenny. And then only by 4 points from Dublin. So, like, there's 3 other Tipperary managers on the go at the top level of the league at the moment.
Not sure you'd have to say that the varying degrees of success was that Darragh 2 wins from 2, beating Limerick and going to Clare and winning there. Like that's an excellent start. And look, I suppose the thing from a Wexford thing, there's no, and it's something that Liam Cahill has done to his credit. Like, you don't go into these counties and reinvent the wheel. Like, you can't just go in and say, look, this style of hurling didn't suit. Like, you have to, if you went in and say we're going to do something completely different, you'd end up confusing the guys. You sort of have to bring them along slowly. And like Waterford are not playing an awful lot different to what they did under Derek McGrath. Like, it's sort of about the same style with maybe just little nuances. Wexford are not completely different to what they were under Davy, but there's definitely a lot more freedom to what they're doing. There's more getting the ball up the field an awful lot quicker, not overusing the extra pass in defence or coming out of defence. And like definitely playing to the strengths of Conor McDonald. I just think that this guy has been wildly. His talents have been for the last couple of years. Like we're not seeing the best of this guy. Is like if he gets a ball in at full forward, like he's like a magnet. Like and he'd bring gutters into the play too, and he can score. And like I think him and Rory O'Connor, if they get on enough ball, like they'll go to town. Like so. Like I think it's going to be a good league for Wexford. Like they should get to a semi-final from here. Who have they? Like they'll beat awfully. I suppose they'll probably next. Oh, sorry, the Wexford. Yeah, I suppose maybe it will probably come down to the Cork Galway matches to see that mini league between Wexford, Cork, and Galway. They all have to play each other, if I'm not mistaken. That whoever the two out of that mini three will probably be the teams that get to the semi-final. So, Darren. I suppose, look, they're probably frustrated. Like, they probably think Kilkenny were vulnerable. Maybe we should have won there. I saw the first half of their match against Dublin, and like they were very, very good in that first half against the Wind. I suppose from their point of view, they went more direct in the second half with the Wind, and they didn't need to do that. They probably just needed to go work the ball, even with the Wind behind them. And look, they went long. Dublin were able to crowd the dropping ball and work the ball up the field against the Wind. And we saw that second goal, the ball into the corner to Eamon Dillon, out in front, cut inside. Paul Crummy, it's Paul, isn't it? Yeah, he's coming through from deep and got in the end of it, stuck it in the net. So look, just that probably bit of cuteness that Dublin had was probably got them over the line. But I suppose that's the frustrating thing from an Antrim point of view. They'll probably pick it up in the Laois match to try and win. Who else? The Tip game, probably not going to win that. And who else have they? They've Waterford coming on Saturday week up to Belfast. So you don't see them probably getting anything out of that one game there either.
Yeah, so Darren said after the defeat to Dublin, we're not here for performances or positives, we're here for points. In this game, you're judged on points. We're after having two really good performances, but we've got nothing for it. I mean, that's the thing. You need both performances. You need signs that players are developing, and you need victories too, because people get a little bit, people lose patience over time.
I just was... You'd love to have seen maybe a couple of players maybe take, like Neil McManus. He's just playing with some ridiculous hurling, like for his age. Like he's doing things that TJ Reid is doing at his age. Like, and he's playing some brilliant hurling. You just love to see maybe an Elliott or maybe or Keelan Malloy just maybe taking some of the pressure off him in terms of the scoring. And maybe I know they were missing was a Kieran Clark last weekend. He was a loss. Like so, just maybe not be expecting McManus to be the one carrying the scoring load at his age.
Yeah, keep the comments coming in here. Michael John Byrne says Cody's tactics look to be outdated and the game has moved on. Kilkenny has spent force trading on Cody's determination and sheer will to win. Well, I mean, they did have a lot of young players who probably they were out. I mean, maybe if it's the Cody old way of win your own battle and that's it. But sometimes winning your own battle when you have these new tactical setups isn't enough because you have to follow your man out the field and then you leave the backline exposed. You have to do a little bit of both.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's not moving with the times. I think Kilkenny are maybe further along in terms of maybe the short puck. I know you could say Owen Murphy, and giving the puck out straight to Dennis Maher for the goal, but I thought Kilkenny were trying to mix it up as well. They just don't have the talent pool of maybe a Limerick or a Galway or even a Tipperary maybe to employ it. And when you take an Owen Cody, a TJ Reid, Adrian Mullen, maybe a Darren Mullen out with a Dara Corcoran, like it's shallow. Like it's I think it could be sparse times for Kilkenny, and even at underage level, like they'll always have good hurlers, but they don't really have the star talent that they were bringing through there for a 10-year period there in the noughties.
Yeah, I mean, they could get further in the championship than Tipperary this year, but still, I think that it is noticeable that the class of hurler that they had on display the other day, the quality wasn't quite there. But look, Tip only won that game by a point, so it's not like we're saying Tipperary are unbelievable here or anything like that. There's a long way to go. But I think there's more talent. Tip have more talent to work with at the minute.
But there's something in the Cody team. Like Kilkenny lost that semi-final to Cork last year, but you couldn't tell me if Kilkenny had snuck that and got into the final that they wouldn't have given Limerick a better game. They wouldn't have beaten Limerick, but they wouldn't have been embarrassed like Cork were in that final. Like they would have found some way to stay in the match, but they wouldn't have won it ultimately.
Yeah, I think they would have been beaten by 10 points, I have to say.
But I think they would. I don't think they would have been as naive as Cork were.
Yeah. I mean, Cork shot themselves in the foot by pushing out and all. Like they needed to protect their backline a bit better. What about the Tipperary footballers? They're out this weekend against David Power's old Wexford team. Obviously, he's a Tip man through and through, but he was over the models for a while. Losing to Leitrim by 8 points at home was no great day out for Tip footballers after drawing Waterford in the opening game. So 1 win and 1 draw from 2 games. How do you see this going?
Yeah, I'm heading down there on Sunday. Look, it's win or bust for both teams. Like Wexford, they lost their first 2 games, but like I suppose if you look on form, like they lost to Sligo and Cavan, who are probably the 2 form teams in the division. So maybe you can say they lost, or maybe they lost to 2 good outfits, whereas Tip are probably coming in a draw against Waterford, a heavy loss to Leitrim. So look, you just wonder maybe over the last 2 weeks would there have been maybe a resetting of maybe what they're trying to do. I'm not convinced that the style of football they're trying to play gets the best out of Tip. I think Tip like playing a bit of open, expansive football. Okay, maybe you might leave yourself a bit open at the back, but I just think even going back to 2016, we got to the semi-final. There's sort of a bit of Tip like to express themselves. Okay, maybe it's a little naive, but look, I think you've got to play to the strengths of what we have. And look, it'd be interesting to see whether they try and play a different way against Wexford, or whether they'll go batten down the hatches, make themselves even more harder to beat, and maybe try and sneak a 9-point state victory or something like that. I think it's going to be a difficult one. If Tip could win this one, there's no reason why they maybe couldn't go and host Sligo the following Saturday night in Thurles and maybe get another win there, and you're off. You have 2 wins, and maybe the league things look up. But look, I think if they're beaten by Wexford, it could be. It's hard to see them beating Sligo. Then you have Cavan, and then you're heading into a disaster of a league before you welcome Carlow and London to finish up. Like, so, personally, look, it all depends on what they've been doing in training since the Leitrim game, whether the script has been torn up and they say, okay, this hasn't worked, we're going to try something completely different. And I think maybe, can you do that mid-league? I'm not sure you can, but I think maybe. Like I know he's been in trying to bring in some new fresh faces, and that takes time. But I'm not sure the style of play, even with the new faces, is getting the best out of them.
Yeah, there's definitely is an element of trying to transition to some degree. But like you were saying there, I think if there are any aspirations of getting promoted from Division 4, it'll have to start this weekend.
Yeah,
because Tipper on 1 point, then London, Cavan, Sligo all on 4. If a couple of them go up to 6. And then you're up against Sligo, and then Cavan. All of a sudden, you're cut adrift.
I'd say they're not even thinking about promotion at this stage. I'd say, how are we going to get a performance? Like that's it. How is it? Why was there such poor performances against Waterford and Leitrim? And that's not being disrespectful to those 2 teams. Like, but Tip just didn't play to the level that. Okay, maybe the last 12 months it was their level, because they haven't been good since 2019 and then 2020 when they won the Munster Championship. Like, so, I just hope that maybe Declan Brown, David, Paddy Christie would have sat down and think, okay, maybe what's not working? Should we try something else? Do we need to add a bit more energy to our counter attacks? Do we need to maybe throw in the odd long ball into Sweeney and O'Connor just to maybe keep the other defenses honest a small bit? Like, so, it'd be fascinating to see what their approach and on Sunday. Look, but that could all depend on the weather. And the weekend is not looking hectic either, so it could be a case of, look, if you get a 7 points to 6 win and get out of Wexford Park with 2 points, I'd say they'd definitely take it at this stage.
It's raining cats and dogs here at the moment. But you had a story in the Nina Guardian. By the way, you can pick up the Nina Guardian now. It's out in the shops. But the Tipperary Camogie and St. Joseph's College, Borrislee, where I went to school myself, have joined forces to develop a new centre of excellence for a game in the county. And your story that you had was last Friday's Sports Capital grant funding announcement saw St. Joseph College awarded €246,000. The grant application was in partnership with Tipperary Camogie for the development of a floodlit Astro pitch, which is 80 metres by 30 metres, a 60-metre wall ball, full gym, and upgrading of the current changing facilities. So that's a huge boost there, isn't it?
Yeah, I know it was one of three, I suppose, elements of I suppose infrastructure we got over the last week. I suppose Tipperary County Board are getting probably 300 grand towards the refurbishment of the dressing rooms, which will probably finish off Dr. Morris Park, which is welcome. Then on Monday night you had there's a separate story there of, I suppose, your regional centre for football down in Fethard, where there's the first, thankfully, long over the first full-sized GA pitch in the county. My God, like, we must be one of the last counties that has one at this stage. And I suppose that was, a lot of that came from Fethard itself, and I suppose the Magnier family in Coolmore, they funded a lot of that, like, so but it's long overdue. I suppose we need to get a second and a third one up and running very quickly, maybe Thurles, Neen end. But focusing on the Camogie end, like, seeing the link up there between St. Joseph College and Tip Camogie is fantastic initiative. And I suppose that the Camogie grounds in the Rag are only 4 miles up the road. It's the ideal location, and it's not building something for Tip Camogie and not have somebody else benefiting from it. It'll be St. Joseph College been benefiting during the day, and Tip Camogie then in the evening. I suppose in the winter time, having that centralized location where you can go and do your winter training, and then you're not moving too far then up the road then when you do your summer training in the Rag. Like, so it is ideal, and a great initiative by Camogie and Tip Camogie and St. Joseph sit down and put this plan together. And look, it can only benefit Tip Camogie going forward. And look, there's great work going on. There's green shoots. You have our minors are flying it there this year, 2 wins from 2. You have the senior, you have Cashel in the All-Ireland Senior A Camogie final this weekend. You have Roscrea in a Senior C final, and then you have the 2 Thurles schools in Junior A and B All-Ireland final. So look, it just shows you that the work going on in school, in clubs, is being built on into schools and our minors and underage, and hopefully over the next couple of years it'll transmit to senior success. Like, our seniors they're knocking on that door, like, and they're going to push through it at some stage, and hopefully that'll be the case this year. And continuing on, like, they're away to Offaly in the league on Saturday in round 2. It's a game they should win, like, so hopefully that'll be they'll be able to build on that big win over Down, like, so.
Yeah, well, like, with St. Joseph's there in Bursley, like, when I was in school, there's people from all the different parishes around. Like, it's a fairly central location. You're only a hen's kick from Templemore, Thurles, Silvermine, you name it, in all directions. So dare I call it the epicenter. It is in a handy location. So hopefully
that's it. Sure, like, you have. I think there's a good core of the teachers in St. Joseph's. They're actually on the Tip Camogie team. I think Grace O'Brien, the joint captain, is a teacher in there. Like, so. It just shows you there's definitely a culture of Camogie in that school, and it's great to see that link up happening, and so hopefully we'll see the development of that. I suppose hopefully see diggers and block builders in St. Joseph sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and so the Camogie team is out this weekend against Offaly after it was a fairly heavy beating of Down the first day out. So they'll be looking to keep the momentum going.
Yeah, it will. And I thought, when I looked afterwards, I thought that was actually a better victory than I give them credit for, because, okay, you don't have the drum and inch players, and Caught Devan was rested, and there's no Karen Kendi who was injured. Like, so saying, like, that was a sort of, it was a banana skin of a game. Yeah, and they won it very comfortably. So, look, Offaly will be a stiffer test. So you'd like to think maybe if that team goes out again and wins, like, you say, what Tipper building a bit of depth here. And I know last year we had an issue where you had, when Tip played Offaly twice, you had Mary Ryan playing for Tip, and you had Maria Teen playing from Offaly, both from the Moneygall club. There's actually a better one this weekend. You're going to have 2 girls from the same household playing against each other for Tip and Offaly, the 2 Brennan sisters. Like, this is brilliant. Like, you have like, they play for the St. Killian's club, which would be up Carrick Riverstown area on that border. the bandits up for near her Laura. You know her that the border. You're not sure about who plays for who, but like a lot of those girls maybe with tip blood would play Camogie for St. Killian's, but they play in the Offaly Club Championship. But you have the case of, I'm going to open it up here a bit. You have Ciara Brennan who's on the tip panel, but her sister Aisling is on the Offaly panel. Like that's brilliant. Like,
could they be marking each other?
Oh, I'm not sure. I think Aisling is on the Offaly team. Ciara is. I'll just go back there again, make sure I'm right. Yeah, Ciara. She was on the subs against Down. She didn't get a game, but could well get game time this time. So that'd be just brilliant if they ended up marking each other.
Offaly's game with Galway last time out, that was cancelled, so this will be their first outing. Actually, it reminded me of the two Heatherton brothers in Dublin hurling. Yeah. So their father and their mother, one is St. Vincent's and the other is Craig Kieran. Yeah. So the two brothers have played against each other since they were young lads, because when the two of them were going to have kids, they said, well, the firstborn has to play with this club and then the next born had to play with that. So it's always a good outcome.
I can't think this will have happened anywhere. I know there's sort of a thing in Camogie where I actually didn't realise it recently that the Mullinahone girls play Camogie for Windgap in Kilkenny, but they play their county hurling with Tipperary. I know that there's that thing in Camogie where the parish boundary is a little looser, and there's some areas in certain counties that maybe don't have a Camogie club, but they could end up playing like the Windgap Camogie girls actually play ladies football with Mullinahone, so that's how to get around that issue. Like, so it's just a fascinating one. Like, so you'd love to see if there was some part of the weekend or a game on Saturday where maybe if Tip are winning well, that Ciara could be thrown in and you get that shot of the two sisters wearing different county jerseys. It would just be unreal. Like, it must be unreal in the house. There must be one that was closer to father who would be pro Tip, and maybe the other daughter was pro Offaly, maybe the mother side of it. I don't know. I must find out a bit more about it.
And then we'll just finish up then the Tip ladies footballers and what Peter Creedon is doing. What are you seeing and hearing from that point of view?
Yeah, I suppose like they lost by 4 points to Kerry at the weekend. They're away to Laois on next Sunday. I suppose it's do or die. If they don't win, they can't get to a semi-final. And look, they're trying to build from the injuries. I suppose we had injuries last year, and then you're coming into the game and Emma Morrissey rolls her ankle in training last Friday night, can't play, and then Angela McGuigan can only come off the bench. And look, you're already down Aisling Maloney, you're already down Aisling McCarthy, you're down all they're just so short of forward strength at the moment. It's cruel. And then you see the finish scoring 1-4. Like, so look, you can see where our issues are. It's in the scoring department, and I'm not sure whether Roisin Howard whether she's only focusing on her Camogie this year. So look, she's another one. Like, so look, it's I think it's just going to be a year of maybe stabilization in terms of Division 2, maybe for Tipperary, maybe if they maintain their Division 2 status, and hopefully as the year goes on and to get building up for Championship, that they'll be getting stronger in terms of getting some of those players back and having a stronger forward element to their team.
Okay, well look, that's it for the show this week. We'll be back again. I get the old tune going in the background there again. We'll be back again next week, and don't forget to pick up the paper in the meantime. Right, Shane, thanks very much.
We have a special in the paper this week. We have a Gaelic Games calendar for inter-county hurling, Camogie, men's football, ladies football, all the fixtures, all the dates for the next 6 months. So if you want to have that and know when things are on, under 20, minor, everything, that's on this week's paper.
Great stuff, Shane. We'll catch you again next week.
Cheers.